Good morning. Welcome to Unity Longmont Spiritual Center on March 6, 2022. And I am dava Money, spiritual leader, and I will be speaking today and leading us in meditation. And Clint Brown is providing us with music. So we'll start with a piece of music. Clint, please.
So for a call to worship or gathering song, Spirit of Life. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Thank you, Clint. It's at this time that we go into prayer together by taking a breath. Beloved presence, everywhere present, this morning we share the peace prayer by St. Francis of Assisi. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there's injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. And so it is. And we'll have music from Clint.
So I have recently had a lot of light come into my eyes in the sense that I had cataract surgery the last month or so. I went through did the left eye about almost 3 weeks ago now, and then had the right eye done on just Thursday. And oh my gosh, for the first time that I can ever remember since maybe the second or third grade, I can see things without glasses. I can drive without glasses. It's amazing. And a lot more light comes in. So in honor of the surgeon, Dr. Monica Ertel at UC Health, I would like to sing it. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. Gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Yes, I can make it now, the pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is the rainbow I've been praying for. Gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Look all around, there's nothing but blue sky. Look straight ahead, there's nothing but blue skies. I can see clearly now, the rain has gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Here is the rainbow I've been praying for. Gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Bright, bright, sunshiny day. Gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day.
Thank you, Clint. Congratulations on more light in your life.
Thank you.
So, Corinthians 2, chapter 4, verse 2. We are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. You can imagine why I chose that, given the state of our world. I have felt heartbroken about Ukraine, and everyone I know has felt heartbroken. And another feeling that comes up for me, and I think for others, is a sense of helplessness. What do we do? What do we do as individuals? I like to, when I send out the newsletter at the beginning of the month, I like to put a title with my talk. And I had no idea what I'd talk about, but I put down war ? And Friday, I'm sitting there getting ready to binge some Netflix, and I realize I know nothing about war. How can I speak to war? I know nothing about war. The only thing I know personally is that my father, who was a helicopter pilot, served in Korea when I was an infant, and then in Vietnam when I was a teenager. And I saw how changed he was when he came back from Vietnam. He was not the man who joked and laughed so much before he went. That's one person. How many other millions of people are being impacted in this moment as we sit here in the beloved safety of our homes? So one of the things I do when I feel helpless is I turn to some of the teachers and authors that I respect so much to help me shift my perception. And so I just kind of wandered through my house of many books, and several of them really stood out for me. And I just grabbed them and opened them up, and let's see where this goes. In unity, we understand that everything was created of the divine, of God. So therefore, everything is divine. And to my human mind, that can be pretty confounding. When I, as a human being, look out and make a judgment and assess someone as being less than divine, what is helpful to me is to remember that we also know that our level of consciousness dilutes the divine. So if we have a very low level of consciousness, our behavior, our thoughts, etc., do not look at all divine. In Unity, we practice both meditation and prayer as a means of raising our consciousness. I know personally my level of consciousness shifts and changes, perhaps based on my perception of myself in the world, based on how cold and icy it is outside, etc. So what can I hold on to? Some of what I can hold on to, and I was reminded of this by the book Seed of the Soul, which I read many decades ago by Gary Zukav, and it served as my Bible for a long time. So I just want to review a little bit about that book and how it opens up my own heart, mind, and perception. We are here in this life, on this planet, to evolve. We each have a personality. We each have a soul. Those are very different, and they experience the world and life very differently. And as a species, we are here to evolve. And he uses the term from a five-sensory being to a multi-sensory being. And if you take a breath and a moment, you might even be aware in your own life how that has shifted for you. In that, as a five-sensory being, we perceive everything through those five senses, and they are limited, right? My sight is limited. My hearing, thankfully, has two hearing aids, so it is limited. My touch is probably limited. My taste is limited because I'm aging and all of that. So what is a multisensory being? That is a human being who is evolving into utilizing intuition over the five senses. Not dismissing the five senses, they still have value, but trusting those hunches when they come up, like get up and go get a book, just allow something to show up. Trusting the hunch that says, go here, go there, do this, be kind, be loving. Not everyone on our planet is at the same level of consciousness, nor is everyone at the same speed of evolution. So our personalities are evolving, which includes our egos, and our souls are evolving. So what I'm going to try to do in this talk is try and talk as much as possible from my soul and hope that our souls join together in some understanding and wisdom, and that understanding and wisdom might soothe us in our personality that experiences worry and fear, hopelessness and helplessness. Our thoughts and our behavior affect reality as we perceive it, right? So part of what brought me to this talk is, how do we create peace? You know, I'm one little person here in Longmont, Colorado. What can I do to help create peace? We pray constantly for that. And I'm aware that my personality, my humanity, is limited, especially by perception, that however I perceive myself in the world affects my behavior. And then my behavior out in that world affects the responses I get. And then that reinforces my behavior and my perceptions. So we can get pretty stalled in our evolution. An example being, if you grow up in a household where you are told overtly or subtly that you're insignificant, that you're not much, then when you go out into the world, into school and into work and the larger world, we then act as though we aren't much. So the people we encounter treat us as though we are not much, and that reinforces that. So how do we break through that? I'd like to say we can call on our soul. I think that's true. And as human beings, we just pause and we look at what are our thoughts, and then we ask the very important question, is that true? And then we look at our behavior and we ask the question, is that serving me? So as humans, we have lots of ways of shifting how we see ourselves, how we interact with the world, and then how we see the world. Our soul may be doing something similar too in its own evolution. And regardless of where it is in its evolution, it still sees better than we do as personalities. And what it sees and knows and is love, compassion, and wisdom. And part of our evolution as humans is to move into those states of being, to learn to love, to feel compassion, to experience wisdom. So I want to suggest that me, dava, sees Ukraine in one way, and my soul may see Ukraine in another way. It's challenging because our soul may recognize truth, but how do you even put truth into words that we share between personalities? I have so many questions and so few answers. What comes to my mind as I think about this is that some people have a lot of influence in our world, and some of us have very little influence in our world. We had a president who, because of his level of consciousness, in my opinion, had a great deal of negative influence in our world and still does. And there is a man in Russia who has a great deal of influence in the world right now. It's hard to know how much influence we each have. We are often taught by some spiritual masters that we can have an enormous amount of influence in our world. And we may buy into some of the ways that we can practice that we can change, that we can make things happen, we can make things come to us, we can attract what we need, who we want. And all of those things are limited to some extent by the fact that the world is so much more than we can understand as human beings. And so when we take a moment to really recognize what is this world, again, I can't put it into words. So I'm going to draw on a lovely booklet I got years ago from a weekend introduction to Tao. Tao existed before the formation of all, yet it was not anterior, which means that the creation was embedded in it. Tao merges into the creation, yet it is not posterior, which means that it is not thereafter limited. Among those created, however large, they can be measured. However small, they can be detected. It is only Tao that cannot be measured of its immensity, nor detected of its existence. It can't be measured or detected. Therefore, it is larger than the largest and leaves nothing excluded. Everything is contained. It is ubiquitous. It merges into and governs all. It is in charge of the space, the earth, human beings, all the creatures, and all existences. It penetrates and regulates the entire universe. It is the source of all the scriptures, sutras, as well as dharmas. It encompasses all the religions, and it is what makes one a Buddha or a saint. It is the single chief of all, and above all, it is in charge of the individual too. It is in charge of the individual also. It is the divine self. This is the true meaning of Tao. For me, that begins to bring some level of peace, some level of acceptance of what is going on within me and beyond me that I don't understand. Because the Tao, or the divine, or divine order, as we call it in unity, God, is the true master. So maybe I can rest into understanding there's a process there, there's an evolution there, there's a movement there, there's a pattern there that is for the good of all, even when I don't see it. One of the things that we can do is develop a sense of reverence. That is part of what we are here to do as our evolution, to develop a sense of reverence. And reverence means it's a kind of beingness. It means seeing the beingness in all things and all people, in animals, in plants, in the earth. It is the soul experiencing life. And how do we do that? One of the ways that we develop reverence is through our own personal suffering. Through our own personal suffering, as I sit here and worry about another country, other peoples, because that suffering can cultivate compassion. And compassion, again, comes from a Greek word meaning split open gut. So when I look at someone else's suffering, there's a visceral feeling in my body. And there is a prayer for them that just emerges organically. And compassion opens us up to seeing others as ourselves. And that becomes reverence, seeing another as ourselves, seeing the interconnectivity. Well, in our world, as human beings with personalities, we look around and we see animals eating each other. And we begin to perceive that that means that you're either a prey or a predator. And as humans, we have taken on that mindset. And that leads to taking advantage of other people because we see others at a less than conscious level as supposed to fulfill our physical and emotional needs. And so what you can see is happening is this imbalance of power, this imbalance of energy, where as human beings with our personalities, we are trying to grab, we are trying to get, even if we're not conscious of it. When we look at animals from our soul, we see they are exchanging energy. When one animal eats another, that which is eaten is giving. That's a pretty big shift in consciousness. As humans, we have a tendency to work in order to accrue things, money, etc., and to store it. We use it, but gather more and more and more than we need. When you look at animals, they don't do that. They take what they need in the day, unless they are genetically programmed to store for the winter. It's still not more than they need. So our soul is inviting us to see the world in a whole different way. One of the things I've always really liked are koans. Koans are questions or puzzles used in Zen training to get us out of our perceptions and mindset, to get out of our belief of duality, to get confounded. So I'm going to share a couple of koans as we go through this morning. And remember, perception is so important. Two monks were arguing about the temple flag waving in the wind. One said, "The flag moves." The other said, "The wind moves." They argued back and forth, but could not agree. Hung Ning, the sixth patriarch, said, "Gentlemen, it is not the flag that moves. It is not the wind that moves. It is your mind that moves. It is your mind that moves." The two monks were awestruck. So let us remember in our moments where we are judging, when we are fearful, that perception is so important. Meister Eckhart says to get at the core of God, one must first get into the core of himself at his least. For no one can know God who has not first known himself. This core is a simple stillness, which is unmoved itself, but by whose immobility all things are moved and all receive life. That is to say, all people who live by reason and have their center within themselves. The seed of God is in us. So what do we do when the world confounds us, when we suffer? We get to that core of stillness. And perhaps that's where we contact our soul. Perhaps that's where we know our soul best. In order to get to that core of stillness, we have to go through different layers, including our emotional states. That isn't necessarily pleasant. And yet there are skills we can develop to do that, to pay attention to our body, to use our breath, etc. So I invite all of us in this moment just to take a breath and be aware of what's going on in our minds and in our bodies. And we are invited to be aware of that with reverence. To be aware of what is going on, what we're experiencing without judgment. And we will practice that again and again, day in, day out throughout our lives. So we have impact in our world. We know, we are starting to feel it the last few decades. We pick up some kind of plastic recyclable thing and we put it in the trash, and what do we feel? Discomfort, right? We know that that one piece of plastic and our use of it has impact on the whole world. We don't know, I don't know, that when I get in touch with that stillness and rest there, I don't know what impact that has on the world. What I'm hoping is that if we all do that in whatever way we're called to, that our impact as a group has more effect on the world, and that our souls individually and as a group have an understanding that there is a divine order unfolding, that my personality, our personalities may not understand. And because of our humanity, we may suffer. And when we suffer, can we trust that that will transform us? That we don't need to discard it, we don't need to ignore it, we don't need to take a spiritual bypass, but allow ourselves to experience it. And when we experience that suffering like any other emotion, it moves through us. It is released. So an important practice, I think, when we are longing to have some effect on this world, is that of non-attachment to outcome, to allowing that which is. And there's another koan that expresses this. As the roof was leaking, a Zen master told two monks to bring something to catch the water. One brought a tub, the other a basket. The first was severely reprimanded, the second highly praised. There's another Taoist story that most of us have heard of the old farmer who was working his crops for many years. And one day his horse ran away, and his neighbors came and said, "Such bad luck." They said this sympathetically, "Such bad luck that your horse ran away." "Maybe," the farmer replied. The next morning, the horse returned, bringing 3 other wild horses, and the neighbors came over to celebrate and said, "What a glorious thing! Your horse has returned with 3 other horses." "Maybe," said the farmer. The following day, his son tried to rope a horse and his leg was broken. So again, these busy neighbors came over and said, "How awful that your son's leg was broken." "Maybe." And then when there was conscription for war and the son was not called up because of his broken leg, the neighbors came and said, "Oh, how wonderful." And the farmer said, "Maybe." So how do we in our own lives say maybe? Especially when we have this hope and the desire to impact something beyond ourselves, and it doesn't appear to go the way that we want. So a reminder that the prayer for protection that we use often was developed during the war, when I think it was James Phillip recognized the suffering of soldiers and came up with this prayer. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. So wherever we are, God is, and all is well. So I invite us to go into a brief meditation to get in touch with that eternal stillness within by taking several breaths, being comfortable in your body and aware of where we are in our body, making any adjustments that help. Just taking several more breaths. And we notice what we're experiencing. And we may name what we're experiencing, for that is our human nature. And let us bring in our soul and not judge what we are experiencing. Let us bring in divine love. Let us remember we are divine love. We are divine compassion. We are light. We are peace. We are ultimately all that is. And we say thank you. We are grateful. And so it is. And Clint will bring us some music.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere. There is more gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere.
Thank you, Clint. So at this time, we go into our donation of love and light. And we do that again by taking a breath and placing our hands on our heart, becoming increasingly aware of the love and light within us, and aware of its expansion beyond us. We know this love and light are shared with others, especially when we decide that that is possible, as we do in this moment. We also ultimately know at a soul level that we are this love, we are this light. And again, we say thank you. And Clint will end our service with music.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let